Hi all, welcome back to the neighborhood. It's your friendly neighborhood reviewer with InToIt Reviews. Today, we're taking a look at the first KBEAR IEM to the channel, the KBEAR KS2. And let me tell you guys, if you're a bass head, or you want to know what is possible for bass reproduction in an IEM, these are worth the measly $25 or less that they cost. In fact, the KBEAR KS2 was provided to the channel by Keep Hi-Fi, and they have also provided me discount codes for the neighborhood, and I highly recommend that you use them. I've seen these on Lightning Deal on Amazon for only $17, or you can use my discount codes, which I'll place in the description below. There'll be links for both Amazon and AliExpress with discount codes for each. This will bring the cost down to approximately 22 smackaroos. But before we get started, just a disclaimer for transparency's sake. This unit was provided to me by Keep Hi-Fi for 11 cents, but I'm not being influenced by them to say anything specifically, and all opinions and recommendations are my own. Nevertheless, check out Keep Hi-Fi's website. I think they have the best prices not only for these, but also some of my other favorites, such as the ZSX. I haven't released a video for the ZSX yet, but I'll place a link to both Keep Hi-Fi's listing and my written blog review in the description below as well. With that out of the way, let's talk about the build of the KS2. Guys, look, it's kind of cheap, but so is the price tag. And the sound, which we'll get into, is not. To begin, it's just a clear green or black plastic shell. But because of this, it's also extremely lightweight, and the fit and comfort are amazing. It fits in my ears nearly perfectly, and I know from people on my Discord server that have already gotten this set that it fits very universally. It can be worn without any issues for hours at a time. While there's nothing wrong with the tips that come with this set, they aren't of the highest quality either, and I prefer to switch to SpinFit CP100s, as with that tip, they floated in my ear, and the bass was also most well controlled. The cable is what appears to be a copper-colored KZ-like cable, and like a KZ cable, it tangles with the best of them. But it was also rather soft for a cable of this variety. The version I received comes with a microphone, and it had little negative impact on the sound. The microphone was also notably good for vocal communications on voice chat, but it was also susceptible to interference from Bluetooth devices. I will also note that I really enjoyed the tone of this earphone for voice chat, as its elevated bass response really filled out voices quite well, without overly bloating them. With regard to driver configuration, this earphone is a custom balanced armature coupled with a 10mm composite diaphragm. It is surprising to me that this thing only has a 10mm diaphragm, as it sounds much larger. With regard to comparisons, the bass on this thing reminds me a lot of the TFZ No. 3 with regards to its emphasis and impact. It ultimately possesses less bass accuracy and definition than a TFZ No. 3 and has a greater mid-bass emphasis, but it's also a great bass tone and texture as well. It's not quite as sophisticated as a No. 3, but I would say it gets about 80% of the way there. Like that earphone, the bass on the KS2 is luxurious, richly detailed, and multi-textured. Some people say other earphones like the Legacy 3 have good bass, but honestly, that bass is rather muddy and one note and pales in comparison to what this earphone is capable of in the low-end department. To be honest, the KS2 sounds like a well-tuned car audio system with at least two 12s in the trunk. It has an intense visceral impact, and while its sub-bass presence does bleed, it also provides additional warmth, fullness, and enhanced harmonics in combination with other presence regions. For example, on piano-centric music, you can not only hear the string being struck by its hammer, but you can also feel it, just as if your head was close to the opening of the piano in a recording studio. In other words, this is an extremely dynamic and percussive set. The soundstage is also surprisingly good for an IEM in this price point. The auditory plane is well spaced out and accurate, and enjoyably, peripherals not only have a decent presence to them, but they also are thrown wider than the rest of the presentation, bestowing the illusion of a potentially vaster stage upon the listener. Further, detail is really good, especially in this price range. It may not be the best under $100, but it's still really great and good enough. In my opinion, KBEAR was smart to include a custom BA in this set for these reasons. In terms of the mids, this is a fairly V-shaped IEM. While lower mids are notably recessed on particular tracks, general mid-range presence was better than I expected, especially considering the KS2's frequency response graph. When the mid-range is present, as it was typically on most music that I listened to, the mid-range had a deep tone and a pleasant richness to it as well. The treble also has a good presence to it, but it does lack a top-end extension. At times, I did notice some mild harshness at the top end as the treble attempted to reach for those super high notes. While I have heard some reports of sibilance by other KS2 reviewers, I think that this top-end harshness is what they were trying to describe, as my set certainly doesn't have any signs of sibilance whatsoever. I could listen to Pink and Blue by Outkast, Triumph by the Wu-Tang Clan, or Believe by Cher without even batting an eye. Timbre was also a surprise on this set, as its BA in particular was very neutral, even if there is some warming from the sub-bass bleed in the dynamic. I have a viewer who swears that this set was way more natural sounding than his Theo Audio Legacy 3, but I'll let the public, like him, decide on that one. Integration between the two drivers was also very good, even though it was notable that the most percussive characteristics were coming from the dynamic. Given its price, I have to compare the KS2 to the VK4, and compared to that IEM, the KS2 does at least as well at everything the VK4 does right, and way better at everything else it does wrong. In summary, the KBEAR KS2 is the entry point to high-quality IEM fidelity for bass heads. In a lot of ways, it's like the Blonde BL03, the Jade Audio EA3, and the TFZ No. 3 had an orgy and fathered this IEM. It's not super bass accurate because let's face it, it's too much. It's just too much bass. But it is enjoyable, and it's better overall than a lot of stuff even quadruple its price. Due to its percussive slam and visceral impact, this IEM is a drummer or bass player's dream. The rest of the presentation is accurate and the BA is unoffensive, for the most part, with good mid-range and treble representation for a V-shaped IEM. At the current price of around $25 or less, it's kind of a no-brainer for anyone who wants to know what bass can sound like in an IEM. So this IEM not only has a crazy bass, but also a crazy price. And with that, I'm out for now.